Now, I have to confess, as somebody who doesn't like the Republican Party, similar to how I don't like the Democratic Party, as somebody who doesn't have any dog in the fight on the Republican side at all, you know, I can't remember the last time I was more eagerly anticipating any type of presidential debate, whether it was the big showdown between the Republican and Democratic candidates or whether it was a GOP or Democratic primary debate. This first Fox News debate had me pumped. I can't believe I'm saying that. Yeah, I like this shit. I enjoy this shit. No matter how fixed or rigged it freaking is. It is what it is, okay? I mean, I was eagerly anticipating it. I made sure I had blocked off that 2+ hours of time for the prime time debate, if you will. I wasn't going to miss it. It was must-see TV, at least heading into it most certainly. And now that I've watched it, now that I've had time to kind of digest it and review what happened, I'm here to give you my recap of the first of the 2016 GOP presidential debates. 2016, even though it's in 2015, whatever. I'll start off with the headlines. I think one of the big headlines has to be the fact that this debate did the numbers that it did from a viewership standpoint. Over 24 million viewers for Fox News on Thursday night. 24 million for the first Republican primary debate. Think about that. 24 million viewers for Fox News for that block of time for a primary debate. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And then I think the other major headline has to be the way that Fox News, and in particular Megyn Kelly, came off and have been perceived by many that actually watched the debate. Even those that enjoy Megyn Kelly, that like, love, and worship Fox News. Many of them were put off by and bothered by the way Fox News, and in particular the Fox News moderators, handled themselves and conducted themselves in this debate, including even Fox News and how they put together this debate, how they chose the 10 primetime candidates and the 7 not ready for primetime players for the earlier debate in the afternoon. That was another major headline to me. Obviously, the biggest headline of all was Donald Trump. I mean, there's no coincidence why there were 24 million viewers for this freaking first GOP primary debate. Donald Trump was there. He's the headline grabber. He's the megastar. He's the one that gets the heel heat. He's the one that gets the attention. He puts asses in the seats. He puts eyeballs in front of the TV screen, period. And these viewership numbers clearly indicate it. And Donald Trump and how he was going to do in his first presidential debate appearance was the major storyline heading into it. He's the guy leading all the major Republican polls. He's the guy getting by far the most attention from the mainstream media. It was going to be the Donald Trump show in a lot of ways. Now, in terms of the highlights, and this doesn't mean necessarily just highlights in terms of things that I thought were good, but these were the most memorable moments. These are the things of note. You know, in some cases, I'm like, yeah, you know, that makes sense. And in some cases, it was just kind of funny. You get what I'm saying. First, I got to say Donald Trump discussing crony capitalism, what I've called before basically corporate fascism in a lot of ways, and talking about how several of the people on the stage have come to him in the past and asked for money. And he's talking about including the Clintons, which you know his previous contributions to the Clintons were going to be brought up, including Hillary's Senate campaigns. Him talking about the fact that, you know, money talks and all other bullshit walks. And at the end of the day, that big money gets you big-time power, big-time favors when you come calling, when you need it. And it was very interesting for an electorate that proclaims themselves to be so tired of that crony capitalism. Here is the leader of the GOP pack by a wide margin right now talking about how he has benefited directly from the crony capitalism, even beyond just Hillary Clinton coming to his damn third wedding. I mean, it was striking to hear somebody actually talking about this and discussing something that all of us know to be true and so many of us pretend to be sick of, yet we always vote for the same people that that utilize this crony capitalism or benefit from this crony capitalism, what have you. I mean, that was a major highlight to me. Also, at the very, very beginning, you kicked it all off with Donald Trump not taking the pledge that was intentionally thrown out there by Fox News and Megyn Kelly, and we know why. It was there to try and turn people against Donald Trump. It was done to make Donald Trump look bad. It was done with a clear-cut agenda in mind. There's no question about it. And Trump stood firm, and he didn't take the pledge. And frankly, I think he demonstrated some courage and conviction in himself for not doing so. And I think it was, frankly, long-term smart and wise to not do so. He didn't sit there and say that, yeah, if I don't get the nomination here, I'm done. No, there's an opportunity, there's a chance that I will sit there and run as a third-party candidate. And that's a thought that has a lot of the GOP establishment shaking in their boots, and understandably so. Another highlight to me has to be the exchange between Chris Christie and Rand Paul on NSA surveillance. And it's always interesting to me when I hear politicians, in a lot of cases, notably on the Republican side, talk about the Constitution when it's convenient for them, but not be consistent in the importance of the Constitution and actually following the Constitution. And you've got Chris Christie, as I affectionately call him, Fat Giuliani, sitting there trying to play that 9/11 crap in a lot of ways, talking about how, security trumps liberty in every case. In a lot of ways, that's basically what he was presenting. He's trying to sit there and have his cake and eat it too. On all the while, you've got Rand Paul saying, no, that's what the Fourth Amendment is in place for. You're wrong. We don't have to sacrifice liberty in order to have security. And it was an interesting and charged debate. And frankly, I thought it was one that Christie came across well to the people that he needed to impress. And Rand Paul actually had a signature moment for the good for him, which has been few and far between on this campaign trail for him so far, for the audience that he's trying to appeal to. It was basically fat Rudy Giuliani versus I'm not my daddy, Ron Paul, Rand Paul. That's what it was. I also thought it was notable how Scott Walker, who I don't think did all that well in this debate in terms of how he presented himself and the way he answered some of his questions, was the only one that really was consciously and conscientiously attempting to tie Hillary Clinton to Barack Obama. It was kind of interesting to me to see throughout the night how the other candidates would attack Obama or attack Clinton, but they wouldn't really try to tie them together. And when you're talking about a President Obama who's at the tail end of his second term, who's not as unpopular as Bush was at the end of his second term, but still not a wildly popular guy whose favorability ratings are consistently below 50%, you would think more of these candidates would be trying to tie Hillary Clinton to Barack Obama. And outside of maybe Donald Trump, I think a lot of these GOP candidates really dropped the ball on that. But here's Scott Walker relentlessly and continuously talking about the Obama-Clinton agenda. He doesn't necessarily have to quantify it or explain it or provide specifics. It's just tying Clinton to Obama is effective. And it will be a talking point more and more throughout the next year plus as we go through this process for the Republican candidate, ultimately, whoever it may be. And I also look at Scott Walker, too. I know I can't be the only one that noticed his huge, massive man crush on Dr. Ben Carson. He was smiling. He was shaking his head. He was acting like a dude trying to get in a bitch's panties, basically. He's sitting there like, I'm listening to you. I ain't fucking listening to you. I just want to get me some of that tonight. You know what I'm talking about, fellas. He had the eyes open of intent. He had the head nodding like this. He was smiling. He was doing all that crap. For whatever reason, Scott Walker hearts Ben Carson. I don't know why. Maybe he looks at him and says, hey, you could be potentially my VP choice because we'll reach out to the minorities. We'll reach out and increase the scope of the party. I don't freaking know. Maybe Scott Walker just likes his men in black. I don't freaking know, just like his coffee. Who the hell knows? But his man crush on Dr. Ben Carson to me was one of the real highlights of the night because it was so obvious and on display consistently throughout the night. And also, too, I didn't realize that the biggest key to Social Security solvency going forward is a pimp pathway. And making sure that we don't allow the pimps and hoes, hustle and flow style, to sit there and cheat the system. Mike Huckabee talking about pimps and hoes has to be the highlight of all highlights of this first GOP debate. It has to be. Pimps and hoes, for crying out loud. These guys are running for president, and one of them, the preacher man, is talking about pimps and hoes. Holy hell. Some of the lowlights, though. In this format where you had 10 candidates, to me, there are too many candidates, meaning there's too little time. There's too little time to get in specifics. There's too little time to have a lot of back and forth. There's too little time for the types of exchanges that helps guys to stand out and distance themselves or remove themselves from serious consideration. You know, it's like you get a little bit of everybody, but nobody really truly stands out above the rest. You don't really find out a lot. And in particular, in this type of format, you get a real lack of specifics and new ideas. It's a lot of generalities. It's a lot of vagueness. It's a lot of fluff, which it's going to be early in this process by and large. That's true. I understand that. But it's disappointing. You know, you say everything's bad and you're in such bad shape as a country that you hear so little in terms of tangible, qualified solutions to the problems. And I think part of that is not just the candidates and their political BS. It's the fact that the format isn't very open to that. I mean, when guys in a 2+ hour debate are only getting 6 minutes plus to talk, or in some cases not even getting 6 minutes, it's really hard to accomplish much of anything at all. But even throughout that 2+ hours, some of the topics that they discussed at the lengths at which they discussed, I thought were very, very troubling. The fact that even in Fox News' Facebook poll that they were talking about, that the #1 issue was racial issues, the only racial issue that was touched on when it came to Black Lives Matter was with Dr. Ben Carson. Imagine that he was the first one you went to. Gee, I wonder freaking why. Hey, look at us. We're Fox News. Hey, we're the GOP. We're not racist. We got one black guy on the stage. We're going to ask him about Black Lives Matter and racism in this country and racial injustice. And then we're going to ask Scott Walker, who's going to talk about the importance of training police officers. Holy Christ. If that didn't make this party look out of touch, I don't know what the hell does. But for a party that clearly has to understand, you would think, after the lessons that should have been learned from 2008 and 2012, that even if they don't really want to, they have no choice but to have to reach outside of white men and white women in order to have a chance of winning a national election anytime soon. The avoidance of the Confederate flag issue, the relative avoidance of Black Lives Matter, and the whole thought process of potential racism and discrimination within our police system, that was very troubling and very concerning. As was the incessant focus on abortion. Look, I realize this is always a GOP Republican talking point, and I don't want to sit there and dismiss the issue as being of no consequence or not being important at all. It's a consequential issue. It's an issue that does have importance. But there are so many issues and so many things to talk about that it's a shame that so much of this, again, is devoted to a topic where so many of the people are going to say the exact same things. It's established. We know it. It's like we have an abortion litmus test. If you agree with somebody on one issue, abortion, does that mean you really should freaking vote for them? No. And frankly, if you're a one-issue voter, then you're not much of a voter at all. You haven't done a very good job of educating yourself. If you happen to sit there and like how a candidate, views abortion, but 30 other issues you think he's dead freaking wrong, is he really the right choice for you? Is he really the right candidate for you to go to the polls and vote for in a primary or in a national election? I don't think so. And just with all the issues and the limited amount of time that they had for each of the candidates based off of the format and the time constraints that were there, they devoted so much of the conversation to abortion, and it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Abortion is not the only issue. It's about high time the GOP stopped treating it like it's the only issue or it's the only issue that matters, because it's not the only issue that matters. It does matter, but it's not the only issue that matters, and we need to stop acting like it is the only one. Now, in terms of winners on the night, I think there were several. I think Carly Fiorina, the old CEO of Hewlett Packard, she was one of them. She was the star of stars for among the 7 not ready for primetime players that took part in the earlier debate. I mean, granted, she was going up against people like Rick Santorum, Rick Perry, Bobby Jindal, George Pataki, and Jill Gilmore. I mean, wasn't hard to look good against them. I'm just saying. But based off of the way the media was reacting to her, and even how the moderators at the beginning, in particular, Megyn Kelly, imagine that, were referencing how well she did and that she'll probably be on the stage the next time if these guys aren't careful. Yeah, she probably will find herself on the stage next time because, in part, she's the only female candidate the GOP has. If they're going to be positioning themselves to run against Hillary in 2016, they probably at some point in time need to act like they take a female candidate somewhat seriously. So if no other reason than for to make the party look a little bit more welcoming and all-encompassing, they'll find a way to get Carly on the stage next time. Otherwise, you look at it's the second option because they might try to look at her as a potential VP candidate. I mean, this shit's so fixed and rigged and planned out. If you can't see it, I don't know what the hell it was. But in the meantime, Fiorina, a big-time winner. She's got people talking about her. You know, she's not going to be left out next time around. I'd be stunned if she was. I think Donald Trump is a big winner. He's the reason 24 million people tuned into Fox News to watch that debate, plain and simple. He got the attention. He got the spotlight. He got so many things that he freaking lives for. But whereas some of the moderators on Fox News seem to try and make a point to go after Trump and try to demean Trump and discredit Trump in a way that wasn't just questioning or seeking information, but was challenging and frankly kind of sickening, Donald Trump kind of stood above, not taking the pledge to avoid running as a third-party candidate, his openly talking about crony capitalism. One of the few well-laid-out thoughts that I saw all night when it comes to specific policies was Donald Trump talking about the healthcare system. Of all people, Donald Trump seemed to have the best grasp on the issue and the best understanding of the problems with our healthcare system. And no, it's not just repealing Obamacare, and it's not just stupid tax credits, so we give away even more to private insurance companies. And in a lot of ways, he came across as strong, he came across as confident, and basically what Donald Trump needed to do is do the thing that has gotten him the amount of supporters that he already has. He might not get a lot more supporters, but he's not losing his supporters because what's gotten him the supporters that he has was on full display on Thursday night, period. I look at John Kasich, the governor from Ohio. He was a late entry into the race. He managed to get himself onto the stage. He was a hometown hero there in Cleveland. And I thought he did well for himself in the debate. Probably could have done a little less with the talking about his dad being a mailman. However, you could clearly see where Kasich, while he's trying to run for president, is really in a lot of ways effectively running for vice president. And when you look at guys like Jeb Bush and even somebody like a Donald Trump, I thought John Kasich did a really good job of sitting there saying, hey, I'm all the way over here at the end, but you guys get the nomination. I'm the governor of a purple state, could potentially help you win the election in 2016. You probably need to come to me. Well, Kasich did good for himself. And actually, I thought Chris Christie did too. I thought his body language was pretty good. While I didn't agree with some of the stuff he said, most certainly the ridiculousness of what he did when he talked about NSA surveillance, I thought in terms of who Fat Giuliani needed to appeal to, he appealed to. I thought he came across as a guy that was confident, who was assured of himself, who felt like he belonged there. I don't know if he came across as presidential, but he most certainly didn't hurt himself. He helped himself, and I'd be surprised if he wasn't back on the stage among the top 10 the next time around. In terms of the candidates, outside of maybe Trump, I thought the biggest winner of the night was Marco Rubio. While I thought it was ridiculous what he said about abortion, I thought his opening statement was strong and powerful and more on the point than anybody else said when he was talking about what it shouldn't be and how we shouldn't be talking about the past, what it ought to be about this and what it ought to be about that. And I thought throughout the night he was very well thought out. He was very prepared. He presented himself well. He presented himself as presidential to the GOP. I thought Rubio really did a good job, and I would be surprised and frankly stunned if he didn't see a decent bump in the polls in the next week or two as a result of his performance in this debate, because he really helped himself quite a bit. I thought he performed very, very well. And ultimately, Fox News is a big winner here. 24 million viewers. You know, for Fox News, who I will affectionately call RNN, the Republican News Network, or, you know, RNC, the Republican News Channel, I mean, they got what they wanted. 24 million people tuning in to watch 10 Republican candidates. Big win for Fox News, it has to be. Because even in that case, some people that aren't over the age of 65 actually watch the damn channel for a change. Imagine that. Now, in terms of some of the biggest losers, I'll start first with Dr. Ben Carson. I thought he looked uncomfortable. I thought he looked unsure of himself. Frankly, he looked like he was in over his head, if I'm being so honest. He lacked for specifics in policy. Some of the answers to questions he was presenting were kind of rambling and off the point, not even in a political sense, just rambling and off the point in terms of what the hell are you talking about. You clearly aren't that well prepared. If there was somebody on that stage that I would find to be most likely to drop out of that top 10 and go to that not ready for prime time player slot the next time around, it might be Dr. Ben Carson. You know, outside of the jokes he made in the end about things he's done, you know, unjoining Siamese twins and that, his overall performance was not very good, as is the case with Rand Paul. You know, while I was with him in terms of what he was saying in relation to the Constitution and NSA surveillance, you know, he's right. He's just right. This is a guy who has run a very poor campaign so far that really hasn't been able to energize the base that his dad had in 2008 and 2012. Frankly, I think a lot of those people went to the Trump bandwagon. You know, Rand Paul can't even get his daddy's voters. And when I look at him, you know, you sit there and see Rand Paul when he's talking about his stance on foreign aid. You know, you have a real chance to sit there and say, for all these candidates that are talking about the national debt and fiscal responsibility, how responsible is it from a financial standpoint to be loaning out money when we can't even pay our own bills? Yes, cut off all foreign aid. We shouldn't be funding our enemies, and we shouldn't be funding anybody else if we can't fund ourselves first. It was a real chance to score some points, to be able to sit there and say, ha-ha, I got you. And I thought he kind of fumbled a bit. I thought he fumbled on Iran. You know, when he's sitting there and trying to go after Donald Trump, he just sounded kind of weak and kind of pathetic, like he was grasping at straws. I don't think he really did very well. In terms of the candidates, the one who probably did the least to help himself was former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. Now, I don't think he did as bad as some are making it out that he did, but he really didn't do anything to help himself. And when he's the guy that a lot of people are looking to as the anti-Trump, at this point, the most GOP establishment-friendly type of candidate, you know, when he's being asked about the Bloomberg Foundation and talking about how he's not looking at the budget, that wasn't a good look for him. That really wasn't a good answer. And he's talking about Common Core. He really didn't have a good answer there either. He was off. And he seemed uncomfortable. He seemed nervous. He seemed a little ill-prepared. You know, he's being questioned about the Iraq War. He's not really giving a firm, believable answer. You know, it wasn't a good night for him. But I think the biggest loser of all has to be Megyn Kelly. You know it's bad when a network, which frankly you could talk about any entity in the media, any network in the media, there is bias. There is an agenda. It doesn't matter if it's Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, Huffington Post, you know, Drudge Report, whoever. Everybody's got an agenda, period. We need to stop acting like there are all these entities that are fair and balanced. They all have agendas. They all have things they're trying to get done. They all have biases. But Megyn Kelly looked like shit last night. It was clear that she was put out there for a reason, which was try to discredit Donald Trump in every sense of the word. She was there to advance certain candidates. She was there to do what so many at Fox News do with so many other Republicans. Serve them up softballs and do this and inject yourself. When you are a moderator, You're there to guide the conversation. You are there to ask appropriate questions and appropriate follow-up questions when needed. You need to be able to control the inmates so that way they're not running the asylum. And instead it was like Megyn Kelly and Brett Baier and Chris Wallace were going into business for themselves. It's not about you. It's not about the moderators. It's about the candidates. It's about the voters. It's not about you. The best moderators are the ones you barely notice. The best moderators are the ones that don't sit there and get the headlines. They don't get the spotlight. They don't get the news. And the fact that after the GOP debate, so many people are talking about Megyn Kelly and the atrocious job that she did as the kind of lead moderator, and rightfully so, because she was brutal and she was terrible. I think it's a shame. Again, Fox News. It's so bad that they're even exhibiting bias and an agenda in a GOP debate. And when you talk about one of the representations of it, they might as well have just had Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity asking the freaking questions. I don't even know why they bother bringing Brett's dumbass in or Chris Wallace's ass in. Again, you've got many people pointing at Megyn Kelly, and they're saying that she has a bias and she has an agenda. So whereas it seemed like Fox News, clearly you got the marching orders from Murdoch and in particular Roger Ailes saying it's time to go after Trump. He's scaring us. He's bad for the Republican brand. He could be disaster for us in the general election. In particular, if he runs as a third-party candidate. Instead of being able to effectively accomplish what you wanted to accomplish by asking tough, specific questions, calling out Trump on policies, calling him out on things he said, and holding him to things he said, you basically come at him in a way where Donald Trump, of all people, becomes a bit of a sympathetic fucking figure. To the point where even me, somebody who would never in a million fucking years want to vote for this guy, who finds him in a lot of ways to be a troublesome individual, feels like he got a hose job here and feels like he got the short end of the stick. Only Fox News could manage to pull off this shit. Where we're talking about bias and agendas in a Republican candidate's debate. Holy hell. Talk about the biggest losers of the night. While they got a bunch of viewers, the fact that it seems like people are talking about Megyn Kelly as much as they are any of the candidates makes her the biggest loser of the night. You're the moderator. Your job is not to be the star of the fucking debate. Your job is to moderate. Please, Fox News, don't ever have Megyn Kelly be the moderator of another fucking debate ever again.